Live from Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital, this is Lunchtime Politics, where we unpack some of the biggest stories of the day and hour, as well as discuss issues of national interest. I am Kelly Egiga, and we're live from our studios here in Lagos, Nigeria. Well, this hour, we take you back to Rivers State, where the impeachment proceedings against the state's governor and his deputy have currently been stalled due to a series or combinations of judicial interventions and procedural refusals. So the current legal status of that state gets our attention this hour on the program. But let's walk you through some of the top stories this hour as we begin with politics ahead of the 2027 general elections. The Progressives Governors Forum is reaffirming its collective commitment to deepening internal democracy, strengthening party structures, and advancing reforms that promote transparency, accountability, and inclusiveness within the All Progressives Congress across all levels of the Federation. Chairman of the Forum and Governor of Imo State, Mr. Hope Uzodimma, disclosed this at the end of its high-level meeting held at the Imo State's Governor's Lodge in Abuja. In a communique read by the Governor, the Forum emphasized the importance of transparent and coordinated financial management in the conduct of congresses and conventions, ensuring fairness, consistency, and accountability across all states, including those without APC-governed administrations.
The Forum reaffirmed our commitment to deepening internal democracy, strengthening our party structure, and advancing the reforms that promote transparency, accountability, and inclusiveness within the party across all levels of the Federation. The Progressive Governors welcomed the comprehensive briefing by our National Chairman on the ongoing national e-registration and digital membership update, which has recorded significant growth in our numbers, including increased youth participation and the integration of national identity number, NIN. The Forum noted that this initiative will enhance data-driven planning, improve democratic and demographic insights, and strengthen grassroots engagement across states and communities. The Forum reviewed and endorsed the proposed timetable and the institutional framework already approved by the National Executive Committee of our great party for the forthcoming World, local government, state and zonal congresses, and the National Convention.
Imo State's Governor Hope Uzodimma. Well, all eyes are on the red chambers today, and that's because the Senate is set to pass the Electoral Act bill, and then issues around electronic transmission has also gotten the attention of civil society organizations who we understand have now staged a peaceful protest at the entrance of the National Assembly in Abuja, calling on the Senate to urgently pass the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Addressing journalists, the protesters drawn from various election monitoring groups say the delay in passing the amendment poses a serious threat to credible elections ahead of the 2027 elections. According to the group, key provisions in the amendment, especially those relating to electronic transmission of results, internal party democracy, and election transparency, are critical to strengthening Nigeria's democratic process.
Yeah, we are here today to ask the National Assembly, most especially the upper chamber, which is the Senate, to pass the Electoral Amendment Bill now, because this is very important. In fact, as a matter of fact, is a thing of a national importance now, because we are having an election next year, and by the current law, notice of election supposed to be given 365 days to the election, which is going to be next month. And as of today, we don't even know the law at which the 2027 general election is going to be administered. So we are calling on them that the pending electoral amendment bill in the presence of at the chamber, at the red chamber, should be passed now. They have been too relaxed on this bill, and in fact, our suspicion is that these senates don't even want to pass this bill. And we are calling on them, what are you afraid of? Pass this electoral bill and let Nigeria have free, fair, and credible election that all of us will be proud of. And that is what we are calling the Akpabio-led Senate to do right now. And that is why we are here. From civil society, everybody, Nigerians are here to call on the National Assembly to pass this electoral amendment bill now.
All right, we're joined this hour by the National Legal Advisor Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, CDHR, Mr. Henry Ekine, who joins us live now from Port Harcourt, the River State capital. Thank you indeed for agreeing to talk to us here on the program. Perhaps, let me quickly get your reaction to the story just before your introduction. Why is there a delay in the Senate passing the Electoral Act Amendment Bill? Is this a move, is this a strategic move as regards the elections in 2027?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate having me on your platform. But just the concern of everyone, I'm also concerned and worried why very sensitive legislations could take this long, or even have this kind of conversation before the legislature will show understanding of the importance of the Electoral Act for a country that would have general elections in just about a year. This is January already, and January is slipping out. So correctly, February is already just by the corner. And then we're having elections expectedly between February and March of next year. So it's only reasonable that the Electoral Act, or whatever we needed to do on the 2022 Electoral Act, ought to have been done even since last year. And that's unfortunate. But again, what the purpose could be is not far from political interest. Sometimes we would think that some of these legislations will push to be properly enacted or probably amended to suit the expectations and desires of Nigerians are not being considered otherwise by politicians, because the way we would expect that those legislations be couched and then the provisions be made in those legislations may not exactly suit their unfortunate expectations or what their designs really are. So if the suspicion is such that the Senate, and that's another disadvantage of a bicameral legislature, where you have the House of Representatives may have passed a bill. The other day I was watching the Right Honorable Abiante representing Andoni Pobo Federal Constituency in the House of Reps, making reference to certain legislations. I think a number of them that the House of Representatives had passed and transmitted to the Senate for concurrence or for them to also consider and pass, but they've been lying there. So, but more disturbing, or rather a greater worry, is even in the Electoral Act, where we have elections. And again, the political activities begin really in this 2026. It's expected that the political parties will begin the internal process of getting their candidates for the purpose of sponsoring them for elections into the positions that are created by the Constitution. So if these issues and other expectations of Nigerians being fallouts of the previous election, the 2023 election, and then the limitations of the 2022 Electoral Act, then it's unfortunate that the current National Assembly, particularly the Senate, fails to give Nigerians a more credible and fair election in 2027. And that would begin with the quality and the kind of Electoral Act that we'll have now, and then the provisions in the Electoral Act that will address those challenges we had at the time, the issues of electronic transmission, electronic voting, and then the unfortunate glitches that the Independent National Electoral Commission explained the other time, and were not really very much acceptable by Nigerians during the 2023 election.
Even though it looks to me like, I mean, for the average politician, you have to do what you have to do to win, right? I mean, some people from a particular region in the country would always still fault the leadership approach of Goodluck Jonathan, who lost an election as president of Nigeria for the first time in Nigeria's history. So some people say, you know what, the current president is a master strategist, perhaps. These are all in the pipeline and strategies and all of that to ensure that the ruling APC comes back to power in 2027. But let's take you to Rivers State, where the drama, perhaps in the last 2 weeks, has sort of mellowed, and some people are wondering why. The reason is not far-fetched. The current legal status is that a combination of judicial interventions and procedural refusals is what perhaps has brought some sort of respite to that state. But because you are a legal practitioner, the chief judge, of course, refused to set up that committee to carry out the investigation of the governor and the deputy governor. But from the legal perspective where you stand, I'm wondering perhaps what exactly are you seeing and hearing?
Yes, what it is a provision of the Constitution is to the effect, that's particularly Section 188, subsection 5, brings in the judiciary in the process of removing a governor or a deputy governor. But before then, let me even, for the benefit of our viewers, make an attempt to take through the provision of Section 188 from subsections 1 until it gets to the point we are now, subsection 5. And that is to say, subsection 1 requires that where a legislature or members of a House of Assembly feel or consider that there has been some contravention of the provisions of the Constitution with respect to the performance of the functions of the office of a governor or deputy governor, that the House of Assembly may convene and then allege certain gross misconduct against the holder of that office. And the Constitution requires that they will issue a notice of that allegation of gross misconduct on the governor or the deputy governor, as the case may be. So we've got past that subsection 1, where the members of the Rivers State House of Assembly, whether justified or not, or whether those grounds, those allegations are substantiated or would be substantiated, isn't the question really right now. So we've got past where they had alleged, they had communicated to the governor, allegedly, they said they had communicated and served on the governor. Even if we got reports that the governor at some point at that time was yet to be served. And critically, the issue of service of any process on another person, particularly when it borders around law and the Constitution, is very critical. It's a threshold issue. So, but be that as it may, the governor at some point said again that
well, I'm not sure what exactly has played out there, but you see how network is and how it can be. Henry Ekine is the National Legal Advisor Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, and we are looking at the current legal status of the impeachment proceedings in Rivers State, where a combination of judicial interventions has perhaps stalled that process. We're trying to see how we can get some analysis and updates for you. Hopefully we can get him back on the program as we continue to just get to take a look at Rivers State. I understand you're back, Mr. Ekine. We lost connection with you for a few seconds. Perhaps you can just land on your thoughts before I throw in my next question.
Yes, please, thank you. Yes, I am. So the point is, the Honorable Chief Judge of Rivers State, it's not quite a question of refusal. It is a matter of the law, the Constitution, that had actually caused him to be unable to proceed with constituting the panel. And then we have 2 orders of court that have restrained him. He said that, and then so he has become some sort of handicapped and then fettered from proceeding. And like I said sometime, that subsection 5 of section 188 of the Constitution now brings the matter of the removal of the governor and deputy governor before the judiciary, because it's clear intention of the drafters of our Constitution that the process of removal does not start and end absolutely, completely in the legislature. It begins with the legislature from subsections 1 until about 4, and then subsection 5, where the request of the chief judge to constitute the panel. So the chief judge constitutes the panel comes into existence from our subsection 7, the panel will go into its proceedings. Nothing happens in the Universal House of Assembly again, or any House of Assembly, with respect to the proceedings of removal until the report of the panel, when constituted and when they complete the assignment, gets back to the Assembly. So where we are right now in Rivers State is that there are 2 pending orders, interim orders that were made by the Honorable Justice Florence Feberesima of the High Court of Rivers State, Oyibo Division. And again, beyond that, it's been reported that the members of the Universal House of Assembly and the Universal House of Assembly appealed against that ruling, or those rulings, to the Court of Appeal. So the matters pertaining to the removal of the governor and deputy governor are sub judice before the Court of Appeal. And by our constitution, and then of course, by the position of the Honorable the Chief Judge of Rivers State, you just have to obey orders of courts, whether you like them or not. And so, again, you also have to give respect to the courts. When the jurisdiction of the court has been invoked over a matter, and now the jurisdiction of the Court of Appeal has been invoked over this matter, so it's until the Court of Appeal comes out one way or another, I do not think that anything really will progress at the moment. And that's why, like you described, some sort of a calm in that whole issue about the removal or otherwise of the governor at the moment.
Barrister Akine, I'd like you to speak to issues around allegations of bias and perhaps procedural irregularities in this process, because I'm sure that's the position of the Assembly, pointing fingers at the judiciary.
I don't see that. Just as fingers were pointed at the members of the Universal House of Assembly about their purpose and the motive around all of these attempts to remove the governor and deputy governor at the same time, and even as much as comments have been that their grounds so far advanced are not tenable and then do not seem to be reasonable. But I had argued, perhaps in their favor, and not quite in their favor, but in favor of the Constitution, that the Constitution vests power in the House of Assembly, however they consider to take the steps they have taken. The same way, the Constitution unfortunately vests power in the Chief Judge to exclusively constitute the panel. But again, the Constitution has also limited not just the Chief Judge, but everybody, including the members of the House of Assembly, not to take any step on any subject matter that is sub judice, that is already before the court. So there is no way, whether bias or no bias, or whether the Chief Judge wouldn't have ordinarily considered a panel. But in this case, it's not the case of bias. It is a clear case that it is no doubt 2 actions were instituted before the High Court of Rivers State. They were not instituted by the Honorable the Chief Judge, but by the holders of those offices. And they have the right to so do if they consider that anything was untoward in terms of complying with the provisions of the Constitution and the procedure. So I do not think that it's about bias on the side of the Chief Judge, at least for now, because he has handy some clear reasons he can't proceed, which, in fact, the House of Assembly cannot reasonably point this finger at the Chief Judge. They are the ones who are the appellants at the Court of Appeal. So it is the House of Assembly, reportedly, that are the appellants at the Court of Appeal. So they are the ones who have even gone to the Court of Appeal, that has even caused the High Court to also adjourn sine die, waiting for the outcome of the matter they have taken to the Court of Appeal. So if there's even anything that will be an action immediately right now, it is their appeal before the Court of Appeal.
All right. One thing looks certain, it looks like the impeachment procedures were perhaps followed by both arms of government, and we must remind ourselves that there are 3 arms of government. It's interesting to see the judiciary play this role now, because sometimes it looks like it's the 3rd arm of government sometimes, and whenever really we tend to downplay their role. But I'd like to ask you, because in all of this, what matters is the people of Rivers State. So in my mind, I'm wondering just how has these impeachment proceedings, though currently stalled by these judicial proceedings, How is that affecting issues around governance in Rivers State and the stability in Rivers State? It's only a 4-year term for the governor of that state, Mr. Siminalayi Fubara, but it's been 4 years of chaos.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, really. If I give you a countdown, you'll really even sympathize with the people of Rivers State. The people of Rivers State elected a governor in 2023, and then who assumed office on the 29th of May 2023. But I tell you, he was only able to perhaps seemingly peacefully run the state for just about 4 or 5 months, and trouble broke. That's the problem here. The members of the Rivers State House of Assembly, particularly this 10th Assembly of Rivers State, appear to me, by my assessment, the most unproductive in terms of the primary purpose of a House of Assembly. But then, as the case would be, just about 4, 5, 6 months, in October of 2023, trouble broke from the legislature. And then all the effects on governance, legislations for good governance, and perhaps it's only the judiciary that was seemingly spared, because the other 2 arms of government got in this unnecessary crisis, really, deep into it. The Section 4 of the Constitution that vested exclusively the powers, the legislative powers of Rivers State in the Rivers State House of Assembly, was for the purpose of the House of Assembly to make laws for good governance of Rivers State, to make laws for order and peace in Rivers State. So if the Rivers State House of Assembly has become so distracted and left that primary purpose of lawmaking, then governance has suffered. No doubt about that. We haven't got good laws made by this 10th Rivers State House of Assembly on the counts of the fingers that have actually addressed any issue that is of concern to the people of Rivers State in terms of driving development, in terms of enhancing peace, and then having good governance. Because just about 6 months into the administration, the same way, less than 6 months into their own tenure, because the House was first summoned in June. So by October, the Rivers State House of Assembly, the attention of the members turned to issues about the executive, removing the governor and the deputy governor. It started since 2023. Now, on the side of the executive, the governor, certainly as a human being, would have been distracted. So it's combining the unnecessary crisis that has befallen him and then the primary responsibility of executing the policies and programs of Rivers State for good governance as well. We're only similarly lucky that administration is still going on, that the civil service is still alive. We're managing the boards, ministries, departments, and agencies despite the crisis. And then the governor is managing perhaps those agencies, ministries, and departments of government in running the executive functions. But on the side of the legislature, at some point, counting also how the governor has fared, before we would know, he did 1 year, 2024, but just about the second month of 2025, it struck again, unprecedentedly, that the governor was suspended for 6 months. So even in just about 3 years that he's been in office, you count up 6 months, as against his colleagues in other states that have had perhaps the full 2 years to 3 years delivering services to the people. So we have 6 months of wastage of both legislature and executive, complete wastage. Because the sole administrator, unconstitutional, unlawful, illegal sole administrator, didn't do any development in Rivers State. He didn't do anything on record in Rivers State.
We have not seen any consequences for that. He was appointed by the president. That's But just before I let you go, we're totally out of time. So, I mean, you began your submission of this particular question stating that he was elected. But the argument for some is that he was selected by his godfather, the FCC minister, Nyesom Wike. So that's the argument for some. Was he really the choice of the people or the choice of one man called his godfather? So my question really, if you look at what is playing out in Rivers State, if you look at what is playing out in Rivers State, in Kano State, in Kaduna State, Do you believe in godfatherism?
It's unfortunate for us to even have that reference in our political process and system, and in our political parties and in our democracy.
Some will argue that that has worked for Lagos states.
Indeed, yes, I agree with you absolutely. With the states you have referenced now, and that's why we've got the setback we've always got, even in Edo State. So godfatherism is a setback, but even that setback isn't by chance. It is already orchestrated by the godfathers that their successors will not succeed if they dare to disobey them, or if you like, withdraw their loyalty. But let me say here that apparently nobody selected the governor of Rivers State. Yes, he may have been supported and endorsed by the minister of the Federal Capital Territory. That's normal. It could happen anywhere, even in the United States.
All right.
In the United Kingdom,
yeah.
Political parties could sponsor candidates and individuals could support them. So when the governor was elected by the people of Rivers State, he was given the mandate. He had the votes.
So we have to go now. We have to go now, but perhaps maybe other godfathers should go and speak with Mr. President and get some sort of lessons as to how he has made it work here in Lagos. So we must anchor at this point. Barrister Henry Ekines, the National Legal Advisor, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, CDHR.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure.
All right. Well, we have to go now. Just before we go, let's tell you that the Kirikiri Light Terminal Area Command of the Nigerian Customs have handed over 440 bags of 25 kg expired raw materials to officials, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC. The raw materials, known as triple-pressed stearic acid, were discovered by officers in a 40-foot container during examination. The acting Customs Area Controller, Deputy Controller Bolaji Adigo, explains that the command will continue to uphold its mandates to facilitate legitimate trade, prevent smuggling, enforce customs laws, and protect national revenue. Well, that report does it for us on this hour of Lunchtime Politics. Thanks indeed for watching. On behalf of the production team and everyone here, this is currently a wrap for today and indeed the week on the program. I'm Kelly Egiga, and you have just been served on Lunchtime Politics. Good afternoon.